Steve Harvey witnessed a mother pretending she wasn't hungry so her children could eat. From that moment, their lives were never the same, proving that sometimes the most profound acts of love happen in silence. And that when we recognize the hidden sacrifices parents make for their children, we can transform not just individual families, but entire communities' understanding of what true heroism looks like. It was a cold Thursday evening in November 2024, and Steve Harvey was having dinner at Mel's Family Diner, a modest restaurant in downtown Atlanta that he occasionally visited when he wanted to experience authentic comfort food in a down-to-earth environment, away from the upscale establishments that usually hosted his business meetings. Steve had just finished filming a particularly emotional episode of his talk show and was seeking the kind of simple, hearty meal that reminded him of his own childhood and family values. Mel's Diner was perfect for this purpose. A place where working families gathered, where portions were generous, and where the atmosphere was warm and unpretentious. Steve was sitting alone in a corner booth, reading emails on his phone, while waiting for his order of meatloaf and mashed potatoes, when a scene at a nearby table caught his attention and would forever change his perspective on parental sacrifice and the hidden struggles of families in crisis. At a table across the restaurant sat a woman who appeared to be in her early 30s, accompanied by 3 children who looked to be between the ages of 5 and 12. What immediately struck Steve was the obvious contrast between the family's circumstances and their determined effort to maintain dignity and normalcy, despite apparent financial constraints. The mother, later identified as Sarah Mitchell, was a petite woman with kind eyes and prematurely graying hair that suggested she had experienced stress beyond her years. She was dressed neatly, but in clothes that had clearly been worn many times, and she carried herself with the careful posture of someone who was used to making every dollar count and every decision matter. Her 3 children, 10-year-old Michael, 8-year-old Emma, and 5-year-old Tyler, were well-behaved and polite, but Steve could see that they were hungry in a way that suggested this meal represented significant sustenance rather than casual dining. Steve watched as Sarah carefully studied the menu with her children, having quiet conversations about what they might order, while clearly doing mental calculations about cost and nutritional value. "Mom, can I get chicken strips with fries?" asked Michael, the oldest child, pointing hopefully at one of the menu items. "Let's see what else looks good, sweetheart," Sarah replied gently. The grilled cheese and soup special might be perfect for a cold night like this. Steve observed Sarah's skillful way of guiding her children toward less expensive menu options, without making them feel deprived or restricted, recognizing the diplomatic parenting required to manage both hunger and financial limitations. When the waitress came to take their order, Steve listened carefully to the interaction that revealed even more about the family's situation. "We'll have 3 grilled cheese and tomato soup specials," Sarah told the waitress, "and 3 glasses of water, please." "And what would you like, ma'am?" the waitress asked Sarah. "Oh, I'm not eating tonight," Sarah replied with a smile. "I had a big lunch earlier, so I'm still full. I'll just have water and enjoy watching the kids eat." Steve's attention was immediately focused on Sarah's response, which sounded rehearsed in a way that suggested this wasn't the first time she had declined to order food while ensuring her children were fed. Over the next few minutes, Steve watched the family dynamics carefully and began to recognize signs that Sarah's claim about having eaten earlier was not truthful. She was clearly hungry. Her stomach was audibly rumbling. She was sipping water frequently, as though trying to fill her stomach, and her eyes lingered longingly on her children's food when she thought no one was looking. When the children's meals arrived, Steve observed Sarah's behavior with growing concern and admiration. She helped Tyler, the youngest, with his soup, cut Emma's sandwich into manageable pieces, and encouraged Michael to eat slowly and enjoy every bite. Throughout the meal, Sarah maintained animated conversation with her children, asking about their school day, discussing homework assignments, and keeping their attention focused on positive topics rather than on any family stress they might be experiencing. "Mom, aren't you going to eat anything?" Emma asked with concern. "You always tell us we need to eat dinner to grow strong." "I'm fine, sweetheart," Sarah replied, managing to sound convincing despite the obvious falseness of her claim. "I want you three to focus on your food and tell me about what you learned in school today." Steve realized he was witnessing something profound. A mother who was sacrificing her own basic needs to ensure her children were fed, and who was doing so with such grace and skill that her children remained unaware of the extent of her sacrifice. As Steve continued observing the family, he began to piece together more details about their circumstances. Sarah's purse was small and appeared to contain only essential items, suggesting limited resources. She had carefully counted money before ordering, and she was encouraging the children to eat every bite of their food, while subtly pushing her own water glass around to occupy her hands and mouth. When Tyler couldn't finish his sandwich, Sarah quietly ate the remaining pieces while helping him with his soup, claiming she wanted to clean up rather than admitting she was hungry. Steve felt his heart breaking as he recognized the desperation and love behind Sarah's actions. This wasn't just about one skipped meal. Her behavior suggested a pattern of self-sacrifice that indicated serious food insecurity and financial stress. Steve made a decision that would transform this family's life forever. He quietly approached the waitress and asked to speak with the restaurant manager. "I want to pay for that family's meal," Steve told the manager. "But I also want to send them dessert and anything else they might want. And I'd like you to tell them that a fellow customer was moved by what a wonderful mother she is." The manager, recognizing Steve Harvey, was eager to help facilitate this gesture of kindness. "Mr. Harvey, I'd be honored to help. That family comes in here about once a month, and we've noticed that the mother never orders food for herself. She always claims she's not hungry, but our staff has suspected she's sacrificing her meals for her children." Steve was saddened, but not surprised to learn that Sarah's sacrifice was a recurring pattern rather than an isolated incident. "I want to do more than just pay for their meal," Steve told the manager. "I want to understand their situation better and see if there are ways to help this family long term." The manager arranged for Steve to quietly approach Sarah's table after her children had finished eating and were focused on the coloring books and crayons that the restaurant provided for young diners. "Excuse me," Steve said gently as he approached Sarah's table. "I'm Steve Harvey, and I couldn't help but notice what an incredible mother you are. I was wondering if I could talk with you for a few minutes." Sarah looked up in shock, clearly recognizing the famous television host, but unable to comprehend why he would be approaching her family. "Mr. Harvey? Yes, of course. Is everything okay?" "Everything is more than okay," Steve replied, sitting down across from Sarah while her children continued coloring, excited by the presence of the celebrity, but not fully understanding the significance of the moment. "Sarah, I watched you ensure that your children had a good meal while you went without food, and I was moved by the love and sacrifice you demonstrated. I want to help your family, but first, I'd like to understand more about your situation." Sarah's eyes filled with tears as she realized her carefully maintained facade had been recognized by someone with the power to potentially help her family. "Mr. Harvey, I lost my job 3 months ago when the company I worked for downsized," Sarah explained quietly, glancing at her children to ensure they couldn't overhear the conversation. "I've been looking for work every day, but with 3 children and limited childcare options, it's been impossible to find something that works with our schedule and pays enough to cover our expenses." "What about the children's father?" Steve asked gently. "He left 2 years ago and doesn't provide any support. It's been just me and the kids since then, and we've been managing okay until I lost my job." Steve was beginning to understand the scope of Sarah's challenges and the impossible choices she was facing daily. "Sarah, how often do you skip meals to ensure your children can eat?" Sarah hesitated before answering, clearly reluctant to admit the extent of her sacrifice, but recognizing that honesty might lead to help for her family. Most days, Mr. Harvey, I eat whatever they don't finish, and I try to make sure they don't notice that I'm not having regular meals. I don't want them to worry about our finances or feel guilty about eating. Steve was deeply moved by Sarah's admission and her determination to protect her children from the stress of their family's financial crisis. "Sarah, you're not going to skip any more meals," Steve said firmly. "I'm going to make sure your family has everything you need, starting right now." Steve immediately arranged for the restaurant to prepare a full meal for Sarah, insisting that she eat while he entertained her children with stories and jokes that kept them engaged and happy. But Steve's intervention went far beyond providing one meal. Over the next hour, as Sarah ate her first full dinner in weeks, Steve learned more about her background, skills, and employment goals. Sarah had a college degree in early childhood education and 5 years of experience working in daycare centers before taking a position with a nonprofit organization that had recently lost its funding. She was skilled, responsible, and desperately wanted to work. But the combination of single parenthood and limited resources had created barriers that seemed impossible to overcome. "Sarah, I want to offer you a job," Steve announced after learning about her qualifications and situation. "My foundation is expanding our youth programs, and we need someone with your education and experience to coordinate childcare and educational activities." Sarah stared at Steve in disbelief, unable to process that her family's crisis might have a solution. "Mr. Harvey, are you serious?" "Completely serious. The position pays $45,000 per year with full benefits, including health insurance for you and your children. You'd be working with programs that serve families in situations similar to yours, which means your experience gives you exactly the perspective we need." Steve also arranged immediate assistance for Sarah's family while she transitioned into her new position. He covered 3 months of rent, arranged for groceries to be delivered weekly, and ensured that Michael, Emma, and Tyler had clothing, school supplies, and other necessities. Most importantly, Steve connected Sarah with resources for single parents that would provide ongoing support, including after-school care for her children and networking opportunities with other parents facing similar challenges. The transformation in Sarah's life was immediate and profound. Within a week, she was working in a position that utilized her skills and provided financial stability for her family. The constant stress of food insecurity and bill paying was replaced with hope and optimism about the future. 3 months after that evening at Mel's Diner, Sarah and her children appeared on Steve's television show to share their story and express their gratitude. "Mr. Harvey, you didn't just help our family survive," Sarah said during the interview. "You gave us our dignity back and showed my children that good things can happen when you work hard and maintain hope." 10-year-old Michael spoke directly to Steve and the television audience. "Mr. Harvey, my mom is the best mom in the world, and now she doesn't have to be hungry anymore. She smiles more, and we get to eat dinner together every night." 8-year-old Emma added, "Mom always took care of us, but now someone is taking care of Mom too." Steve was visibly emotional as he listened to the children describe how the assistance had impacted not just their material circumstances, but their family relationships and emotional well-being. The story of Sarah's sacrifice and Steve's intervention resonated deeply with viewers, many of whom shared their own experiences with food insecurity and the difficult choices parents make when resources are limited. Steve used the overwhelming response to establish the Hidden Hunger Initiative, a program that identifies and assists families experiencing food insecurity, particularly those headed by single parents who are working or actively seeking employment. The initiative provides emergency food assistance, job placement support, and ongoing resources to help families achieve stability and self-sufficiency. 2 years after that dinner at Mel's, Sarah Mitchell has been promoted to Program Director for the Hidden Hunger Initiative, using her experience and compassion to help hundreds of other families facing similar challenges. That night, when Mr. Harvey saw me pretending not to be hungry, I thought my biggest problem was hiding our situation from my children. Sarah often says when sharing her story, I learned that the real problem was thinking I had to handle everything alone. Steve keeps a photo from Sarah's television appearance on his office wall, not as a reminder of his intervention, but as a reminder to pay attention to the quiet sacrifices happening around us every day, and to respond when we have the power to transform struggle into hope. Sarah taught me that heroism often looks like a parent silently sacrificing their own needs for their children. Steve reflects when discussing the encounter. The least we can do is make sure these heroes know they're not alone and that help is available when they need it. Today, Michael, Anna, and Tyler Mitchell are thriving students who understand the value of hard work, compassion, and community support. Sarah continues her work with the Hidden Hunger Initiative, ensuring that other families receive the recognition and assistance that transformed her own family's trajectory. The story of that evening at Mel's Diner proves that when we pay attention to the people around us and respond to their silent struggles with immediate action and ongoing support, we can transform not just individual lives, but create systems that prevent other families from facing similar crises alone. If this powerful story of maternal sacrifice, hidden hunger, and the importance of recognizing the struggles of families around us moved you, please subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to see that parents making sacrifices for their children deserve recognition and support. Have you ever witnessed a parent going without necessities to provide for their children, or experienced food insecurity in your own family? Let us know in the comments about ways we can better identify and support families facing hidden hunger. And don't forget to ring that notification bell for more amazing stories about the beautiful things that happen when we choose to see and respond to the quiet heroism of parents who sacrifice everything for their children's well-being.